So, where did we get to last time? Yes. The Hittites were going through their dark age. Their civilization was in turmoil, and the people were not able to project their power beyond their own heartland. Things were looking pretty dire. However, things would take an upward turn for the Hittites. It all started during the reign of King Tudhaliya in the late 15th century BCE, and many consider this to be the start of the Hittite Empire phase. But what could it have been that caused this rejuvenation? Well, there's a few things. Firstly, the strength of the king within the Hittite domain was greatly strengthened. Hereditary kingship became the new succession system, ensuring that there would be much less civil war when an old monarch died. Furthermore, the role of the kingship was slightly altered, where the king now performed a role as the highest priest within the empire, preserving temples and leading festivals. The king was actually referred to as "my son" by the people from this period onwards, sun being the entity in the solar system, not someone's kid, signalling the new and improved importance of the king and the power that he now held over his entire populace. And so, Tudhaliya, using his new power base, would reignite Hittite expansionism. The city of Aleppo, as well as parts of the Mitanni kingdom, which was to the east of the Hittite heartland, were conquered, and the domains of the Hittites were expanded. He also conquered west, defeating Arzawa. These conquests allowed the Hittites to settle much of Anatolia. The Hittites primarily tended to settle the newly conquered regions of southern Anatolia, and less Hittites made their way into the newly conquered western territory, nearer to the Aegean Sea. The imperial phase continues with King Suppiluliuma. He conquered the Amorite city-state of Karshemish and consolidated his diplomatic standing. Babylon was still ruled by the Kassites, who were allies of the Hittites, and efforts were also made to ally with the Egyptians. However, these plans were derailed when the Hittite groom was murdered before he could reach Egypt. But this newly found diplomatic position was not fully secure, because the Assyrian Empire was quickly encroaching on Hittite territory. The first thing that the Assyrians did was conquer the Mitanni kingdom, which the Hittites were actually giving military aid to in a desperate manner to maintain a buffer state between the kingdoms of the Hittites and the Assyrians. And then, once the Assyrians had conquered the Mitanni kingdom, they went on to conquer northern Syria as well as parts of eastern Asia Minor. The Hittites were also not helped by the fact that they also experienced an epidemic of rabbit fever, which knocked out a decent part of their population. This epidemic would go on to kill Suppiluliuma and his son, Aranuvanda, until the next stable reign emerged under King Murzili II. Murzili II invaded west once again and fought the Arzawans. The Arzawans fought back against the weakened Hittite state, and this attack was repelled very cleverly by the Hittite defenders. They sent some infected rams into the Arzawans, causing the Arzawan attack to falter under disease. And interestingly enough, this is actually the first recorded instance of biological warfare in history. That's quite a cool fun fact. Murzili also attacked a city named Miletus. Current consensus is actually that this city was part of the Mycenaean Greek culture group, and the rulers of the city, Ahiyawa, have been attributed to ruling at least part of the Mycenaean Greek region. The next big test for the Hittites was the expansionism of the Egyptians in the 13th century BCE. One of the largest battles of this period, the Battle of Kadesh, was fought between these two regional powers. The details of the battle are relatively unknown, but it is figured that the Hittites were close to completely routing the Egyptian forces, but only a clever and lucky reinforcement of the Egyptians prevented this. Following the battle, the Hittites withdrew to the fortress of Kadesh, but since the Egyptians had actually lost many of their number, they were unable to sustain a siege. That concludes this episode on the Hittites, but do stay tuned for a finale, which should be coming soon.